Hi, I'm Bruce Maples, publisher of Forward Kentucky, and today I want to talk about something that I've heard a number of people discuss, which is there's no use in Kentucky being a Democrat. We can't win. We're not going to flip any seats, so on and so forth. Well, in some years that might be true, but this year we're seeing a real Democratic wave building across the country. Every special election, or just about every special election, has been won by a Democrat, sometimes by crazy numbers. Even in Georgia, in a seat that was Republican by like 30 or 40 points, the Democrat overperformed by 20-something points. So there is a chance, and I decided to look into it. I decided to do some stats work. I'm sort of a stats nerd and an Excel guru, so I decided to build a spreadsheet just to see what we're looking at. So before we get into the actual spreadsheet itself, let's talk about some bad news. On the screen, I've got the numbers of how many uncontested seats in each chamber there were in the last election. So for the House, that would be 2 years ago, 2024. In the Senate, it would be 4 years ago because they have 4-year terms. That would be 2022. So 2 years ago in the House, there were 43 Republican seats where there was no Democratic challenger. And there were 12 seats where there was no Republican challenger, which the Democrat won by default. This year, unfortunately, there are 52 seats where the Republicans can win because there's no Democratic challenger. And you'll notice that the Republicans have done better at recruiting candidates. There's only 7 uncontested Democratic seats in the House this year. So we start out with, if we were to win every seat, right, that we could win based on who's challenging, we could only win 48 seats because we're only contesting 48 seats. In the Senate, we're doing a little bit better. We have one more person challenging a Republican this time than last time. So that's good. But this is a real structural problem that any amount of spreadsheets and any amount of blue wave won't do anything to solve because we don't have anybody in the field running against the Republicans. That's something that I hope KDP and the party as a whole and the local parties. So here is the last election in each chamber. And you can see the Republican votes and the Republican percentage and the Democratic votes and the Democratic percentage. And then you can see the gap and who won. You'll notice that some of the seats have no Democrat there. That's where we didn't contest. And so they had a 100% winning percentage. If you scroll down here a little bit, you'll see some of the same things for some of the seats where Democrats were unchallenged and the Democrat won. But you'll notice some that are much less red or blue. The gap was fairly small. And in fact, some of them, the gap was very small. So we wound up with 80 Republican seats and 20 Democratic seats in the chamber, in the House. So let's look at the Senate. Last time, there were a bunch of Senate seats that weren't contested, as you can see. We won one seat out of the 19 that were up 4 years ago, and that was Karen Berg. All right, so that's the current situation, 80 and 20. Now, I put 2 factors in here. One is, what do you think the Democratic swing is going to be in the state? Is it going to be none? Is it going to be a few percentage points? Is it going to be a lot of percentage points? And do you think the incumbent, if the incumbent is running, there's a bonus for that? And there is, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so I started out with this. I just did a raw basic swing using the Democratic swing number right here. That's all we did. So if you put in, say it's going to move 5 points. Say we get a 5-point Democratic swing. Well, in the House, we pick up 3 seats. And which ones do we pick up? You go down through here and you can see which ones have flipped. And here's the first one. Ken Fleming's seat, just on a raw 5% swing, is one that flips. And let's see, Grossel who barely beat Shirley and Stevenson last time. That seat flips, and there should be one more, and I'm missing it, and I'm not sure who it is. Oh, that's Fleming. I'm sorry, I must be blind. Oh, here it is. Susan Witten's seat. Okay, so that's 3 seats that we might pick up if there was a 5% swing in the House. What about in the Senate? Nope. Doesn't make any difference. That's not enough movement to change anything in the Senate. All right, so let's try again. Let's try 10%. That'd be quite a bit. But, as I will tell you in a minute, the numbers have been even bigger across the country. All right, so there we pick up 12 seats. If there's a 10% swing, this is just raw numbers. A 10% swing gives us 12 seats pickup. That's quite a bit. Now, across the country, the average swing in some of these elections has been 13%, which is quite a bit. So let's try 13% and see what that does. Well, at that point, we pick up 14 seats, and it looks to me, unless I'm mistaken, it looks to me like the Republicans lose their supermajority. So that would be pretty cool, right? So, but it's one thing to say that with all the raw numbers and based on last elections, candidates, and so on and so forth. What about this time? So I did a whole nother section with actual candidates. And so if you scroll down through here, you'll see that anywhere there's a primary, I included all the names, right? And I didn't mark the incumbent as running because you don't know till the primary is over if the incumbent won the primary. So, and then the ones that weren't challenged, I just went ahead and marked the winners over here, okay? So let's start at 0 just so we know what we're doing here. Okay, so there is the same thing as last time, right? So let's try 5% and let's see what happens. So if we do 5% with the actual races that we're facing, same thing, we pick up 3 seats, and it's Witten and Fleming and Grossel. But in the Senate, nothing. 5% is not enough to change the Senate. All right, let's try 10%. Okay, wow, there we pick up 12 seats with the actual candidates that are running, and there's a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to read every name, but you can sort of see right there's a bunch that are all in a row. And a number of them, of course, are in Louisville or Lexington, but some might not be. So you go on down through here, and we pick up quite a few seats. Now, if you go to 13%, there's the 14 seats. You know, you can play with this and take it up to 20% or whatever you want to do. Let's go back to 5%, and let's try putting in some incumbent bonus. All right, so if the incumbent is running, what does that do? Let's put in a 5%. Does it increase their numbers by 5%? Doesn't make any difference in the House because most of the incumbents are unchallenged, or most of the incumbents are going to win by large enough margins that they don't need the bonus. Okay? And remember, 5% in the Senate doesn't do any good. It's the same as right now. All right, let's move it to 10%. And with a 5% incumbent bonus. And again, in the House, we still pick up our 12 seats. And, you know, again, it doesn't make any difference in the Senate. You have to go to 15%. Let's try 13%, no incumbent bonus. And that's what it takes to see something happen in the Senate, because now you're close enough that you can flip some seats. A 13% swing. But watch this. In the Senate, not in the House, in the Senate, if you put an incumbent bonus in of 5%, you lose a bunch of them. That's how close some of these Senate races are, where the incumbent bonus can really make a big difference. If we put it back to 0, you can see some of them that flip. So here's the interesting thing. Incumbents used to have a bonus that was anywhere from 5 to 10 to even sometimes 15 points. That's not been true for the last couple of elections. In fact, most of the incumbent bonuses have been under 5%. So if we try 3%, we still lose a couple of seats in the Senate, but it doesn't really affect us anywhere else. So there's the numbers, okay? Now, if you start out with, okay, the way it is, if you assume that we're going to get the same, that we're not going to have any Democratic swing in Kentucky at all, then that's what you get, or even worse. But I'm thinking that we will have some swing. If I was going to be a betting person, I would probably bet that across the state, it would be somewhere around 8%. And so Democrats would pick up quite a few seats in the House, but not in the Senate. It wouldn't make any difference in the Senate. So that's my predictor. It is posted on the Forward Kentucky website under this story. If you want to go grab it yourself, download the file and play with it. It's a macro-enabled Excel file. I will take the macros out of it so you don't have to worry about that. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it interesting. Once we get through the primary, I will do it one more time, and I will take out all of the competing candidate names, and we'll be able to mark the incumbents that are actually won their primary, and we'll do this one more time. So watch for this. It'll be later in the spring or summer, and I'll post it again on the website. All right. Thanks for viewing.